Hi, everyone. Welcome to another First Wednesdays. Uh, First time we're doing like a regular Zoom. So I hope everybody's professional from the waist down. We've done so long, we didn't have to, do that with these sessions anyway. But yeah, so glad to have you all here. I'm here with, of course, my partner in crime, Gary Markham, our executive director of the Music Administration Collaborative. And we're so glad that you're here with us. It's really interesting. We have 91 registered for tonight. And we were thinking about early on canceling July just to give everybody a break. And then all of a sudden we have more people signed up for July than we had for any of the other sessions. So we hope that it's beneficial. And I really am going to enjoy this one because it highlights the collaboration part. Glad to have everybody here. So, the topic for tonight is getting back to normal. What are your schools going to look like as we start getting closer into the fall? I think it's really interesting to share ideas.
Hang on, Rick. We're getting a really bad echo. Can everyone make sure that if they're not speaking, they're on mute?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, guys.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So, what are your districts doing? And I do have some people that I've asked to sort of speak, and I picked some people just from around the country for different reasons, and I'll get to introduce them. But I also certainly want all of you to jump in when you feel comfortable and appropriate, just to say, hey, yeah, we're doing that too, or tell us a little bit more about what you're doing when somebody is speaking. So we're going to go ahead and show a video that doesn't really have anything to do with the MAC, but it could, not directly related, I should say. We were going to do it at the end, but being that it seems like people are still coming in, we'll go ahead and do it. It's just a few minutes long. And it's, Gary, do you want to explain a little bit about what this video is? Were you involved with it, or was Nola primarily involved with that?
It was primarily NOLA that worked on this. I kind of was doing other things with DCI at the time. So I think the video will speak for itself, actually.
Okay, great. Beth, why don't you go ahead and roll that for us?
Hi, friends. This is John Phillips. I'm a consumer educational clinician and judge administrator for Drum Corps International. And today I'm joined by my friends and colleagues, Dr. Nola Jones, formerly with the Division of Education at Consumer, and a judge liaison involved with training for judges at Drum Corps International. As well, Lee Carlson is with us, and Lee is the artistic coordinator and director of competition for DCI. Nola, 2 weeks ago, we presented a workshop for the Consumer Institute Connect, and it was for the marching arts community, and we gave a bit of a teaser about something very special that's happening this summer. Can you tell our friends about that?
Thank you for allowing me to be here with you today. So yeah, we teased this out when we did the marching arts workshop a couple weeks ago, and it's all come to fruition. It's really fleshing out nicely. We're going to do the first World Judging Symposium, and it's really only possible because DCI is a non-competitive year this year. So this symposium is for anyone who thinks they might ever want to judge pageantry arts of any kind. It's for parents who might want to know more about the process that you go to every weekend with your students. It's for band directors who would like to know more about how their groups are evaluated. And it's for potential pre-service music education majors who are going to be out in the real world teaching soon. So really anyone who wants to know more. And we're really excited about this opportunity to bring it to the whole world.
Well, it sounds pretty comprehensive. So Lee, when is this actually taking place, and how will people learn about this?
We're going to be streaming live from Lucas Oil Field on Thursday, the 12th of August and Friday, the 13th of August from 1 to 5 in the afternoon. It'll be live broadcast with a lot of information.
Lee said it's going to be live, but what if somebody can't attend when that broadcast is taking place?
Well, John, it's better than Netflix because it's on demand anytime you want to get to it, and you'll be able to access all the information for 30 days after the live event. So you can watch it live, and then you can come back and review anything that may have piqued your interest.
Now, Lee, Nola alluded to the fact that if someone was interested in becoming a judge, this might be a good event for them to participate in. Anything else you can add to that?
The World Judging Symposium is open to everyone. We invite anyone that's interested in the performing arts, the marching performing arts, pageantry. You're going to get a chance to go behind the scenes, meet some of the judges who make those decisions, and understand a little bit more about the process that goes through their minds to come up with the scores and how they're giving the information to the ensembles. And this will apply for drum corps, marching band, any of the indoor activities during the winter. It's inclusive of all of that.
Well, that's great. It really does sound comprehensive. Nola, Lee's talked a lot about the judging aspect of this, but are the people who participate in this symposium going to get to see any of the drum corps that are performing this summer?
Absolutely. So we've created what we think is a really great buffet style menu of options for anyone who would like to participate. We've got some live broadcasts from Lucas Oil Stadium. We have some opportunity to interact with the judges panel, and we're actually going to go out to a few of the rehearsals live. They're going to be one particular session is about field judges, and they're going to be at an actual rehearsal to discuss that process. So we feel like it's a real comprehensive and yet not too deep, not too technical experience. You don't have to have a lot of experience, just an interest in knowing more.
Well, Lee, how about for people who are already judges and working in the pageantry world of adjudication?
This will give the judges that do judge locally or nationally an opportunity to reboot, to go back and remember the skills that you had and get that experience back so that you become a better judge and that you're giving the information out to the performers and instructors that will be the best that it can be. So it's a chance to just renew our skills, renew our craft.
I'm really excited about this opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to collaborating with you two, plus quite a panel of experts that we've assembled who will be presenting the material throughout these 2 days. So for anybody who's interested in knowing more about how judges arrive at their scores and placements, whether it's in the band world, the drum corps world, or the indoor pageantry world, please join us for the first ever World Judges Symposium live from Lucas Oil Stadium, August 12th and 13th. You can look on the screen that's coming up for the link that'll take you to even more information and registration.
All right, and we're back.
Yes, thanks, Beth, for sharing that. If you had trouble with that video for whatever reason, we'll post the link on our Facebook page here by sometime tomorrow. Okay, let's get on with the business at hand. Hopefully, several more people have come in. Again, the topic is, what are you doing to get ready for the new school year? And I'd like our first speaker to be Russ Sperling. And Russ is out in San Diego. He is the Director of Visual and Performing Arts for San Diego Unified School District. Russ has recently been named one of 2 potential candidates for the National Association for Music Education president position. And congratulations on that, Russ. And I understand from Gary that you were actually part of getting us off the ground at one point with what we're doing with the MAC. So, so glad to have you. Thank you for agreeing to do this. And so just tell us what's going on in either San Diego or California, or what you know about your part of the world.
Thanks, Rick. And yes, Gary, I was part of the group several years ago that helped get MAC off the ground, this has been a great forum for people to get together and swap stories and ideas So out here in San Diego, I just had a meeting with my boss in the last hour, and I was asking, so where are we with negotiations with the union for health and safety? Where are we at? Because I know that I need to make a decision on bell covers. I know that we have a lot of bell covers that came back. I have a feeling that a lot of them got lost. Just like, are we going to need them or not, kind of a thing. And I have not gotten a straight answer, but I know that when we ordered them the first time, it took quite a while for them to show up. They did not come as promised in the timeline promised. So I'm kind of thinking that if I don't hear in the next 2 weeks, we start school, I think it's the 25th of August, something like that. So I have a little more time than I know a lot of you do. But I think that's one of the first things I have to decide is whether, and will I be able to access federal funds, which I should be able to, right? Because there's plenty of money floating around, but whether or not I can get the right person to say yes between now and the time I need to make the order. So that's sort of where I'm at as far as, where we're going to be playing. But I know that I want to keep a really close eye on numbers since we have not had the opportunity to do our regular recruiting. And I don't know about you, but when our kids came back to campus, our kids came back in April. When I was walking around high schools in particular, they were like ghost towns. We had so many kids that never really came back. They were online, they were there, but they haven't really been in our presence for a really long time. Elementary, totally different story. Those kids showed up. Parents wanted them out of the house. They drive them to school. They got them there. But secondary, I'm concerned, and so far we haven't lost any positions, any ground on that. But I think most principals are kind of saying, okay, the numbers might not be where they're usually at, but we're going to give you the benefit of the doubt to build things back. So given that is the status, I really want to listen to kids. I want to find out what is it that they want. I wonder, now that they've had a year off of marching band, do they still want marching band? And I suspect in our larger schools, because we have the whole gamut. We're a large urban district. We have some programs where marching band means coming out to the game on Fridays and pretty much staying in the stands. And we have Mira Mesa High School, which is going to the Rose Parade this year. So, I mean, we have the whole gamut of schools. But I just really want to get a sense of where kids are at and what it is they want. What we do know is that, like a lot of you, we had a lot of online learning platforms that we purchased and made available to kids, and they were super creative. Some of the things that I have seen kids create have been totally amazing. So how do we keep those things going? How do we keep our kids engaged in that way? And the kids that maybe are more attracted to that kind of music making than our traditional music making experiences that we've had, how do we strike that balance? And how do we make sure that we're serving all kids, given that we've just been through this different environment? That being said, I have asked for literally millions of dollars to buy new instruments. It's that opportunity. And I feel like the more shiny instruments that we have out there for kids, the more kids are going to see that and go, oh, I want to do that. But right now, I think we're in this period of time where they might not be thinking that way. So I just want to add in one other thing. You didn't really give me a time limit, Rick. I could take the rest of the hour if you. I just want to say that one of the things that we've been working on in our district is, after the whole George Floyd incident and all of the racial unrest from a year ago, our district has always been a very progressive district. In fact, many of you know that my superintendent is now the Deputy Secretary for Education in Washington, D.C. And because of that work, she was noticed. And we're a very progressive school district. We're doing a lot of work around racial equity. We have an ethnic studies requirement now. We have restorative justice for discipline. We have and standards-based grading. And the standards-based grading is a huge shift. That means you can't grade for attendance. You can't grade for participation. It is, you only can give a grade based upon what's in the standards. And we pretty much in California adopted the National Core Arts Standards as our standards. But we have taken this time over the last year where we've had really more access to teachers because of meetings like this, that the access has been very easy for teachers. We've been taking a lot of time to really dig into the standards, and we're using Marzano to build in critical concepts, to extract critical concepts and proficiency scales for all of our music classes, for all of our arts classes, which all the other content areas are doing too. You know, it's very important that we do what the other content areas are doing because we're an academic subject. And so we've been taking a lot of time to do all that work. And that is going to have implications on how teachers teach their music classes. I'm very excited by it because it is going to provide more of a balance in creativity and responding and all the artistic processes. So anyway, that is more work that we're going to be involved with this fall as well. So that's sort of the report from out here. I'm curious to hear what else is going on elsewhere.
That's great, Russ. Thank you for providing that. One of the things that I want everybody to kind of think about, and maybe we can get to it at the very end, is what did you notice that your teachers had done out of maybe necessity because they had to find stuff for kids to do because they couldn't do what they normally do? What were they doing that they felt like, wow, I need to be doing this all the time, and I'm going to try to find a way to keep this in my curriculum, even though we're kind of back to normal and have to do all these standards-based things or whatever it may be, the competitions. I kind of keep that in your mind as we go on. Does anybody have any questions for Russ about what's going on in his area? Okay, again, please don't be afraid to unmute and jump right in. We're gonna go across the country a little bit to Texas and to Dr. Joe Clark, who is the Director of Performing and Visual Arts for the Spring Independent School District in the Houston, Texas area. Joe's also the current president of the Texas Music Administrators Conference. And so he has a lot of insight to what's happening in the entire state. And he actually had to do this because he took my place, and so he owes me. So Joe, what do you have going on in the great state of Texas?
Well, I came here to learn what I need to do next. You didn't tell me I was going to be speaking. You said like I could show up and I could learn. I'm picking on Rick. Yeah, and I hate following Russ. Russ, that was great. I was taking notes. That was fantastic. But I would say like the big bucket things, staffing, I think we're okay. And I see Dr. Morrison on here. I think what we did in Texas is we brought in Dr. Bob Morrison to help us with ESSER 3, and it was just in time to where we could get to a lot of our districts and get word out on that they should not be cutting staff. And it was just like in the nick of time, and some districts did already start pulling staff back. But with that money, I think we're okay with staffing. In fact, what our biggest thing right now that we're doing is interviewing. Like right now I have a text window over here with other fine arts directors, and we're sharing names and doing everything. I asked, are you full? Okay, here's a couple candidates. So we're sharing as much as we can. The other thing too, that we're in spring, we're Title I, probably I think 75 to 80% free and reduced lunch. We lost a lot of families. They returned all their instruments for rentals. So like as soon as the pandemic hit, probably like a lot of you guys, parents lost their jobs, and so they started cutting costs. So all the instruments went back. So as a district, we rented a lot of instruments. Just like real quick, we went out and rented probably hundreds of instruments. So this year we went back and we tried to buy beginner level instruments for the sixth graders to try to get them back into the program, to get back at recruitment and retention. That's one of the things I'm worried about is the numbers. We need to reach out to them, reach out to the families, and let them know that this is an option. This is not an expensive option. We understand you're hurting. We understand where you are. We want to help and be a part of it. So we're trying to lower the cost of everything, that entry point for music ensembles. The other thing too, and I see Peter Warshaw on here too. Peter, I'm gonna talk about the clinic. We just did a clinic, and I would say the other big thing, and this would be the big bucket item, is I'm worried about the expectations being set so high or anywhere close to pre-pandemic for teachers, for kids, for anything, where we're just going to cause another stressful situation. Like people are talking about SEL. You haven't seen anything yet if we try to keep those same expectations as pre-pandemic. So what we do in our district is we do have a staff expectation sheet that they sign every year. And I'll be honest, in the beginning, we had them sign it because like we wanted performances, and some people were skipping out on performances, and some people were doing this. So we had a minimum bar. But I will be honest with you, I am looking at that sheet now, and I'm going to make sure that I adjust it in a couple ways. And Peter, you can jump in too. But one of the ways is I need to make sure they understand that the minimum expectation is going to be adjusted for what is actually possible and should be attained with those kids at this level for next year. And then I'm going to communicate it and model it and show them everything. Because if we try to push everything so hard, so fast to try to get back to anything like what it did before, I'm worried. Our teachers are really stressed out, and they've already redlined. So we're really concerned about the staff. We want to make sure that we're giving them everything they need. And right now it's grace. I think they need grace to understand that, no, I'm not expecting the best band in the state. I just want the kids to be involved. And I saw Dr. Morrison put in there connecting. I think the other thing too that me and Peter talked about is make the students a part of the process. Make the students a part of the education again. Pull them into the class. Make them a part of the decision making more than we ever have before. Because one, that's going to level set the expectation across the board, but it also addresses all the SEL parts that we need to talk about and bringing them in and making them feel safe again. So I would say we're going to lower the expectation, and I don't say lower. We're going to adjust appropriately, because some parts of our district can, and some parts are going to struggle. But we absolutely are going to bring the students into that decision-making process. I think that's what we're going to put on that.
Thanks, Joe. You actually bring up a couple of really good points, which I'm actually surprised about. But just kidding. Bob, I heard you say just recently, and I was having this discussion with my wife as well, who's a former educator. We're not talking about a learning loss. We're talking about learning delay, right? So nobody's lost anything because no one is able to do anything. And we have to, I think, kind of keep that in perspective. And I think, Joe, what you said, absolutely make sure that their expectations are aligned to what we've been dealing with. Yeah, great points.
Rick, is it okay if I jump in since Joe?
Please.
I mean, I don't normally do what Joe asked me to do, but this time I'm going to. So he's right. That was something that we talked about a lot. But what we also talked about was that the students that our teachers are going to have that come back to them in the fall are not going to be, number one, they're not going to be in the same place musically, but they're also not going to be in the same place humanistically. They're going to be different people. And so they've really got to think about not just what kind of standard that they're going to be holding our students to, but also how do they get there? How do they instruct the students? Their students are going to be different from what they were before. And not just that they're, a year and a half away from where we thought they would be normally, or a year away, whatever it was, but they're going to be different people because of this experience that they've gone through. And we'd be foolish to discount that, in my opinion. So that's something that when my guys come back, they have not come back yet. Our administrators started back yesterday. Most of our teachers are going to come back in the next week or two. But that is something that we're going to talk about quite thoroughly, that, hey, these are not the same kids that you had before, and your expectations have to be different, not necessarily lower, but they've got to be different. And you have to celebrate every success that they have, no matter how seemingly small that it might be, because they're adjusting to a different kind of life now. There's like a real person in front of them. And we are going back 100% in person, by the way. So it's going to be different now. It's not the talking head on the TV screen that they're going to be listening to. It's going to be the real person that they have to relearn how to interact with.
And Peter, I got to jump in there too. The thing I'm so excited about is my bread and butter was middle school. I was middle school band director. I've done high school, but I love middle school. And when you get those middle school kids up there, they don't know if they're good. And so like anything you hear, you can say, that was amazing. And it doesn't matter what it is. Like they are like, oh, it was amazing. And we could turn this thing on a dime so quick. I mean, all it takes is that positive encouragement. I mean, they don't know like what we know about the level of musicianship and everything. It's what we tell them it is. It's what we show them it is. And so that's the part that gives me chills. So like what I'm thinking about is like, how do I model that and teach that to my staff and my teachers to make sure that they don't go like too far, and make sure that they use that positive reinforcement and let them get excited about being in the program. Not lower expectations, because they still need high expectations, but they have to be appropriate. Yeah. And I see the chat. Yeah, I'm going to find my expectation sheet because I pretty much like tore it up. It's going to be completely different, but yes, I'll put it, I'll link to it. Thanks, Rick.
Joe and Peter, and another thing that comes to mind is that this is a great opportunity to get kids into the program that maybe you never caught the first time around. They're looking for something to do, or they missed the opportunity for whatever reason. Let them all come in. Maybe you're going to start band kids in ninth grade. I've seen that work very successfully in places. So anyway, just some other things to think about. Okay, we're going to continue across the country, and I don't know who officially is next, but I'm going to go to Sarah Womack. Sarah, thank you for joining us. Sarah is the coordinator of fine and performing arts in Atlanta Public Schools. So she has a really large district to deal with. So what's happening in your area as far as going back to school?
Yeah, so we're still trying to figure that out. We are, a very progressive district, but when it comes to COVID, we've been very conservative. Our students didn't get back until February, and then we only had about 30% of our students that returned face-to-face across the district. Like Russ was saying, the high school was like pretty empty. There may have been like 1 or 2 kids per class. Everybody else was virtual. We start back August, and we're going back, full-time face-to-face. We do have about 1,000 students across the district that have opted for full virtual school. And they still will be able to participate in, marching band and other after-school activities with their home school, but their primary instruction will be virtual. So we're just trying to figure out what the guidelines are. When I talked to our lead nurse a couple weeks ago, she was like, yeah, we have the same guidance that we had at the end of last school year, which was everybody's masked, bell covers, no performances pretty much. Even with the new CDC recommendations with vaccination. So I'd love to hear from other people about how their districts are handling vaccinations and masks and bell covers. Are you just leaving it to the kids to just, be responsible and wear masks if if they're not vaccinated, and kind of how they're handling that? Yeah, we start, band camp in 2 weeks. So just trying to figure out, about ordering bell covers and how to make sure that they're going to get here in time. And, like Russ said, did some of them walk off? Are they still in cases? That kind of thing. Also, we did get a good chunk of money, about $500,000 for new instruments. So we're really excited about that. That's been, and it wasn't even like, I probably could have asked for more. Nobody even questioned my request. It was just like approved. I'm not sure where exactly it came from, if it was from COVID relief, or if it was from general funds that were replaced by COVID relief dollars somewhere else. But I'm not arguing. Our teachers really have been listening to students and parents way more than ever before. They're kind of letting them lead the way. What are they comfortable with? And then they're tailoring their programs to that. Most of our programs are doing kind of a rebranding. We haven't had any, well, in the spring, we did have like 2 outdoor concerts with 2 of our schools, but the rest of our schools have not had any kind of performances, since March of 2020. So it's just going to be kind of a rebranding. What do we want to keep that was working well? What do we want to refresh? Definitely some things that were positive during virtual learning. All of the virtual platforms, we were still really using a ton of method books, but now using Smart Music and Music First, our teachers really were able to individualize assessment. Instead of just listening to a section and thinking that everybody has it, being able to listen to those individual recordings, I think really has impacted, individual performance, obviously. And then also just connection to professional musicians. We did a ton of, Zooms with orchestra members and chamber ensembles, and hopefully that will continue. Zoom has made it, really, really accessible, although we do love seeing people in person. And getting back to those concerts, the accessibility of Zoom, and everybody kind of having a new baseline of understanding of virtual platforms really impacted learning positively. Our districts in Georgia have a lot of autonomy and flexibility to kind of make their own guidelines. So what's happening in Atlanta is different than our other metro districts. So that's kind of hard to juggle. Like, you have a marching band come and perform at your stadium, but they're not wearing masks and having bell covers, but we're going to have to. So just trying to figure out how to work that politically is going to be a challenge, I foresee. So yeah, I think that's about it with Atlanta.
That's awesome. That's something I never even thought of, is how are you going to handle what other schools are doing when they, when you have some type of, inter-school competition or gathering. So yeah, interesting stuff. I've been taking some notes. I think we really want to try to help, Sarah and others with that whole vaccination and mask question. So maybe we'll post that on our Facebook page. I see a lot of people looking at the page, but not really responding. So that'd be a great opportunity to do that. Until next time, when we come together next month too, we can certainly carry over. But great information, Sarah, and thank you for sharing. Okay, we're going to go a little bit, I think, further east. Jason Walsh, the Director of Fine Arts at Dorchester, am I saying that right? School District number 2, Somerville, South Carolina. And, the reason Jason's getting to speak is because this was his idea. And, when it's your idea, you get volunteered to actually do it. So, but he was gracious as always, and has done many fine presentations for us in the past. So Jason, what you got going in your area?
Well, I don't, this is completely unfair. It was my idea, but to follow Peter, Joe, Russ, and Sarah, I can just say ditto, and maybe
you need to move further west, I guess. And
yeah, well, this was my first. One thing that I will say that I get to say differently is this was my first year in this role. I started exactly a year ago today. July 7th was my first day in South Carolina. Previously, I was in Nashville, and so we just had to. One thing that was great about that is I just got to jump in. There was no new guy syndrome. It was, hey, you're here. What are we going to do? And so we went through all the learning models and all those different things. One thing we were fortunate to do is, and I echo Sarah, is we just asked for a ton of instruments and a ton of things. And I don't have no idea where the money came from, but nobody balked. Everybody just said, oh, if that's what you need, that's what you need. I hope that continues forever and ever. I don't think it will, but it was great. So we were able to get some things to happen where we bought all the learning platforms and all those things. And that brings back something that I'm really trying to work on this year is I'm finding that a lot of our new teachers are fully invested in the digital part. They didn't know any better. And a lot of our seasoned teachers, all year I want to get back to normal. I want to get back to normal. I want to get back to normal. And some of those things, like the ability to provide direct feedback to students through a video recording, is something we've given at least lip service. In the 15 years I was a band director, we gave lip service to recording and feedback and all that. But at the end of the day, we had to have a show on the field on Friday, and we had concert festival. And we didn't really do it with any kind of fidelity. But this year, due to the situation, we saw real gains with that I'm hoping will continue. So I'm trying my best. This year, we've been meeting to talk about what our new normal is. How do we take what's best from what happened this year and use it as an opportunity and a launch for what's going to happen in the future? Not that we ever want to replace performances, and we don't want to replace marching band. I mean, I live in the Southeast. You're not replacing marching band. It's not going to happen with football and all the things that happen here. It's just not going to happen. But how do we make it an and not an or? That's been the big thing. This whole year, my motto has been, let's keep them activated. They would say, how are we going to do it? I said, I don't know how we're going to do it. My superintendent came to me on the Thursday of my first week, and he said, what are we going to do about virtual school? What fine arts are we going to offer? And I just said, we're going to offer all of them. And he said, well, how? I said, I have no idea, but we're going to do it. We're going to do it. They sign up for steel drums. We're going to figure out how they can do steel drums on a computer screen. I don't know how, but we're going to figure it out, because the goal was to keep them activated. So this year, we're with the bell covers and all those things. Our state is a little different, that they've just kind of, this whole year has been very varied. Some places in part of our state, they just did marching band, and they had marching band competitions. And we had to tell our guys, you can't go to away games, and you can have a pep band. And so to gauge that with parents and students, and to make them not feel left out, was a real challenge. But hopefully this year, we're going to start completely what normal used to be, with 100% in person. And what that means, we don't know. I know we bought all the plexiglass in the whole world, and every air purifier and all the bell covers. And now if you drive around our little town, there's mountains of plexiglass outside of schools, because we're going to start without plexiglass. So we're trying to figure out what that means. Also, we were thrown like 2 weeks before school was out. Our governor decided he just had enough of masks. And he does a press conference, and he says, starting tomorrow, students can opt out of masks. We'll release a form to school districts. And that was 2 weeks before school was out. So now kids were bringing all these forms to school, and we're trying to figure out, how does a teacher know which kid in their classroom has an opt-out form, which kid doesn't have an opt-out form? What is the official opt-out form? And so hopefully we're working right now to get some of those numbers figured out for next year. But the other thing that we've been talking about a lot is using this as an opportunity. Our school district aligns all of our teacher, like Joe was saying, I was really scared about allocations and our staffing, because all of that is based off of student numbers. Well, we didn't know what was going to happen, especially for those elective classes. And our superintendent was fortunate enough, we had some meetings where he just said, we're going to put a moratorium on it this year. We're going to be staffed at an equal level to before the pandemic. And you have basically this year and next year to get those numbers back up to where they were. And then we'll see what the allocations need to be. So this year we're doing a lot of recruiting. We have those registration days, and those days where we push things out to parents about the new upcoming school year. We're pushing out to all our teachers and all our principals to reopen registration. They've agreed to reopen registration for all of our electives for those 2 weeks at the beginning of the year. So we're going, because we, like a lot of folks, weren't able to recruit. There were no school visits. I mean, I couldn't even visit schools there for a long time. And they had to be scheduled. So we're working on those recruiting flyers and those recruiting videos and all that. So those 2 weeks before school and those 2 weeks, the first 2 weeks of school, that we're just going to grab them out of the hallway. Hey, have you ever thought about doing this? and just figure out the rest later. And so, those kind of things, as you're talking about teacher expectations, as people were talking about that, I'm finding that the hardest part that I'm dealing with now is the teachers want that normalcy, especially they want those things, and they get frustrated as we came back face to face that they realize that these kids aren't where they used to do. Because if you've been teaching middle school band for 30 years, you know that on this date, I'm at this line in the book. And on this date, we set this out and we do this and do this. And all of that's out the window. And they're I'm starting to feel their frustration to say, well, I'm so far behind. And I'm saying, no, you're not. You're not behind. Just teach them where they are. And this is a hard reset. It's like your phone when you hit the two buttons and everything goes blank. This is a hard reset. And let's try and use this as opportunity to get more kids involved and really use this as ground zero to say, we're going to keep moving forward and keep them activated. So that's where we are. I'm trying to figure out all the other kind of things. I love hearing everybody else's. I know this sounds awful to say, but it sounds great to hear that everybody's questions are the same. That's exactly why I posed this idea, because we're all in our own little bubbles lots of times. And, and so it's good to hear that other people are staying up late at night wondering if they need to go ahead and pull the trigger on bell covers. It's a kind of a crazy thing that is not normal, but I'm so glad to hear that everybody has the same questions. And so that's all we've got going. We're just trying to keep them activated, get more kids in. My goal, I told my superintendent, I tell all the teachers, my goal is 100% participation. That every kid has to choose an elective when they get to middle school. How do we make that elective what they graduate doing? That's the goal for me. So I will stop talking, or I could talk all night. So
hey, Jason, no, thank you. I always enjoy hearing you talk, and I love the hard reset option. You just kind of driven that home. And again, what you said, this is all about not reinventing the wheel. If Russ Sperling in San Diego can help you, Jason, and South Carolina, why keep beating your head up against the wall when we have people that we can help each other? So I think we just really need to continue to focus on sharing that. Okay, we're going to go up the coast to Boston, to Tony Beatrice. And Tony is the executive director for the arts at Boston Public School. But I would be remiss to not come back down the coast to New Jersey, because now that I see Bob Morrison's on here, I can't not have him say a couple of words, because he has the lens of really the entire country. So Tony, what's going on in Boston?
Sure, there's a lot going on. Just to give everybody some context, we're a school district of 52,000 students. We have 125 buildings, the majority of which were built before 1900. And within that, we have around 125 music teachers. The majority of those music teachers are teaching in the K-8 space. Some exciting things as we move forward for next year. We have 30 high schools, all with different graduation requirements, and some of them have no arts as a graduation requirement. And we just adopted one set of graduation requirements for all high schools, and all students have to have at least 1 year of arts. So next year is going to be our planning year with central office, and they're going to spend like $10 million the following year on arts, PE, and health teachers. So we're really excited about that. We have lots of arts happening in the elementary space, but at the high school space, it's been rough. So we're excited about that growth. With the ESSER funding, we're waiting to see if our asks were approved. We have a few different buckets. Obviously, new instruments. The majority of instruments owned by the district came from VH1 Save the Music back in the early 2000s. And we just spent the whole last year going through our entire warehouse of instruments and getting them all rehabbed, getting new cases for them, and now we're out. So we desperately need new instruments. We have 12 new instrumental programs starting up next school year, and then hopefully a lot more after that. with this expansion into the high school space. Also, we asked for, in our ESSER funding, starting, a lot of our teachers teach music technology as part of their teaching load. It's very common in Massachusetts. I don't know if it is where you are. So we're transforming that into a hip hop music production class. And so we'll be getting new Macs, DJ Roland 202 turntables, beat makers, and MIDI keyboards if it gets approved. So we'll be expanding that into 10 high schools, along with 10 new steel drum ensemble programs. And then we're going to be our opportunity gap closer that we're focusing on. We heard feedback from our teachers, and then we surveyed students just about private lessons. And so we're going to create some hubs around the city for students to access private lessons after school for free. And then also this idea of what we're calling ambassador ensembles that will meet after school. And these will be kind of our top tier all city ensembles to perform at different events throughout the city. And those students will be paid for their time to rehearse and also perform. There's been a lot of studies done about career connected learning, and especially of crime rates and graduation rates. A lot of stuff coming out of Chicago that paying for students in our large city schools after school is a really positive thing. So we're gonna try that out, and we're also piloting with the organization Education Through Music. We're gonna have 10 high school musicians go through a training program and then have them get private lessons and paid for that, or get community service hours or credit to elementary school students, and do some workshops at our different universities in the city with a goal, hopefully, of creating a pipeline of new music teachers that are more diverse than what we currently are hiring, from our different higher ed areas. So that's pretty much, that's it. It's going to be a great year because we're excited about this new graduation requirement. It's kind of like we're starting from scratch with our high schools. And then hopefully we can get more kids into districts and all states and stuff like that by offering private lessons.
Thanks, Tony. Again, great information. Several people have mentioned the ESSER funds. Several people have mentioned staffing. I guess it goes without saying, or I think it goes without saying, that we will never see this kind of money again in our professional lifetime. This is a one time that, like Russ said, I'm ordering a bunch of instruments because now's the time to get it, right? Several of you have mentioned the same thing, or your technology needs. So get in there and get a piece of that pie. It's there for the taking, and that plenty of people that can help you navigate those waters if you're not sure how to do it. One of them, and I hope, Bob, you don't mind that I put you on the spot, but I didn't know you'd be with us. I'm so glad you are, but I would love to get your insight on what you've heard and maybe some other things that we might not have heard yet.
Well, whenever I see that Russ and Sarah and Tony and Joe are going to be on a call, I can't pass up the invitation to hear what's going on in their communities. And Tony, by the way, I was there when we delivered those instruments back in 2000. So yeah, I believe it's about time you get a refresh on some of those things. So I did drop into the chat the guidance that we released last week for the state of New Jersey. And this was based in response to some guidance that our Department of Ed had put out. And we're dealing with about 2,400 schools and 1.4 million students. And the approach that the state of New Jersey and our governor is taking is the expectation when schools reconvene is that we're all in, full days, all in person. There is no exception for online learning. There's no opportunity to opt out to online unless you have, a special needs or an IEP. So the idea is we're all coming back in and trying to resume some sort of regular instructional patterns that we had previously. So along with that, they put out some guidance regarding the fact that there will be no mask mandate in the state. However, local districts can, come up with their own guidance. And of course, in local communities, the parents are putting pressure on school districts to make sure that their kids do not have to wear masks. So that being said, we came out with our own guidance, recognizing the fact that there is a population of students that do not have access to vaccines. And because of that, we felt that it wouldn't be responsible to ignore the fact that we've got students 11 years old and under that have not been vaccinated yet. And we do know that performing arts does generate aerosols. So then we've made a demarcation line that will largely fall along the lines of elementary school and then middle high school about what's happening with our mask requirements. So elementary schools, where we do have an expectation that students should still maintain their masks and the instruments should have masks. And I want to be clear that if the instruments have masks, you don't have to have an instrument mask on your student. Okay, the guidance makes it very clear that if the instrument is masked, the students can just have their regular mask down underneath their neck, and when the instrument comes down, then they pull up that mask. So just so you're not double spending on masks the way some people did earlier on. And so additionally, the folks at the Federation are going to be releasing an update to the aerosol study probably tomorrow. And the information in that study is largely along the lines of what you see that we published last week here in the state of New Jersey. So that information should help you moving forward. Again, recognizing that all of these decisions, are going to be local. And there's a caveat to all of this, because if conditions change in a community and all of a sudden there's a significant outbreak, you need to be prepared to, okay, what are our strategies if there is an outbreak? Okay, we know that we can mask. We know that we can do minimal social have minimal social distancing, and that will work. And I think the idea of masks and 3 feet of social distancing should keep us from having, widespread program disruption, particularly when we talk about the fact that the 3 feet is measured center of seat to center of seat for the research. Okay, so it's not 3 feet seat to seat, it's 3 feet center of seat to center of seat. But the one thing that I want to remind everyone is, and I agree with everything that's been said about what did we learn that we're going to bring forward, we have to play into our superpower. And our superpower is students making music together. Because you can make music on a computer, you can't make music on a computer together. You can make music alone on a computer and have it make it look like you're playing together, but it's not playing together. And a lot of what I'm hearing from schools where programs have been coming back is the desire of students to play music together. And you can see educators that begin to tear up the first time they hear those notes together. We've seen students that, the first time they're playing together go, wow, we sound pretty good, and their eyes get wide because you can't get that sound from your computer. And I think that that's the thing that we need to lean into, because our students, need to have that sense of community. And as many of you have heard me mention before, and others have said it, our students will not learn until they feel safe. And a lot of our students will find their safety spot in our programs. But we need to make sure we're allowing our programs, that we're structuring our programs to embrace them, to meet them where they are, to make them feel safe, give them a sense of belonging, give them a sense of ownership and engagement in the program. And that's how we move forward. And then those students you can use to help recruit their friends who may have drifted away, who didn't want to do online band. There are going to be opportunities to build forward from wherever it is when we come back together. But don't be dismayed if the numbers are down. Just know, hey, we're going to start with what we have, and we're going to build from there.
So Bob,
Great.
can you talk a little bit about your panel and what they're doing at Midwest?
Yeah, so at Midwest, we pulled together a panel of all-stars, including, Omar Thomas and John Mackey and Brian Balmages and Alex Shapiro and Scott Egger, who will be leading it, talking about the connecting the social emotional learning aspect into the compositions that are being created now, and how we actually engage our students in a meaningful way with SEL, and what are the composers now thinking about as they're writing, for this new environment as well. So it's really about elevating and illuminating the social emotional learning component of what we do. And we all know that it's there, but how do we activate it? And particularly now, as I mentioned, it's going to be a bigger priority now than ever before that we are using the power that we have in music to engage our students through the social emotional learning aspects of them as human beings.
Perfect. Thank you, Bob. That's great.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth, Gary. I was going to ask him to do the same. And speaking of Midwest, it's not going to be virtual. It'll all be in person. So if you're going to be able to make it to Chicago in December, not only will Bob and his all-star crew be presenting, but Nola Jones, and she's got an all-star crew panelists from a couple of different states that are going to talk about some COVID-related things and sort of lessons learned. And then David Vandewalker, who many of you know, is also going to do a session on building programs, and I'm sure he's going to bring in some booster information in that, since he's sort of our booster guru. So hope you'll look forward to some of those things. Next month, let me look at my schedule here. So August 4th, don't miss our first Wednesday. That's Back to School with Dr. Tim. So he's going to be doing a session for us to kind of get us all pumped up, getting back to school. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to add, share, questions or anything before we shut everything down? Don't be afraid.
I have a clarifying question for Bob about vaccination. So you just made the determination, or y'all just made the determination on age, not necessarily whether they had been vaccinated or not.
No, and that's because in the state of New Jersey, we have very high vaccination rates for those over the age of 12, so that, or over the age of 11. So that's why we made that differentiation. By the time our schools open up, anyone that wants a vaccine can have one, and therefore we shouldn't be withholding programs because others have made decisions not to vaccinate themselves. That's a choice that they have made, and that choice should not impact whether or not we have programs for other students. And so that's kind of the philosophy behind it. And when and if we get to that point with our 11 and unders, then I think that you'll see the same thing. But there has to become a point in time that if the state is not going to require vaccinations for public school students, then you can't take things away from students just because there are some people that decide not to vaccinate themselves. Those that are vaccinated, they have protected themselves. Those that have not vaccinated, they have chose not to protect themselves. That's on them. It shouldn't be on the other students who are there for all the right reasons to have any of their programs taken away for those that chose not to get vaccinated.
Yep, there's definitely going to be some challenges ahead, and being proactive, and like Bob said, have a plan B just in case. Don't get caught flat-footed when all that starts. Hopefully it won't, but if it were to. So we're about out of time. Man, thank you so much, everybody. It really makes me feel good. I'm not in the classroom anymore. I'm not with the school district anymore, but to hear the passion that you all have about keeping things going, getting things going again. Jason, when you say it doesn't matter, we're going to figure it out. We may not know how to do it now, but we're going to figure it out. I really appreciate the passion and the commitment you have to making this right for kids, because that's what it's all about. So to Sarah and Joe and Russ and Tony and Jason, thank you all for being my plants in the audience. Really appreciate your insight, and please join us on Facebook. I think Beth, our behind the scenes person, dropped some links in there for some things and how to register for next month's meeting. So yeah, unless anybody has anything else, thanks so much. Have a great rest of the week, great weekend, and we'll see you next time.
Cool. Be safe out there.